Good day, everyone. My name is NGOZI Edith Onyemaechi. I'm of the Department of Sciences in University of Abuja in Nigeria. I wish to congratulate the organizers of this summit for a job well done. I want to salute their courage in bringing the summit to the virtual platform, enabling all of us to participate despite the travel restrictions in our countries of residence. It is my sincere hope that the exchange of ideas and opinions will help us to create a healthier world and a better life for us all. My study is titled Malaria Prevalence Investigation among Pregnant Women in relation to their social well-being, a case study of Lugbe and Gosa, Abuja, Nigeria. Malaria is both preventable and treatable, but yet life-threatening. The main agent of transmission is the female Anopheles mosquito, which transmits the plasmodium from an infected animal, in this case an individual, and in this case a human, to an uninfected individual. 5 species out of over 100 have been identified as infecting man. Unfortunately, there's no vaccine yet. Malaria can also be acquired congenitally, can also be gotten through blood transfusion. The risk population are pregnant women because their immunity have been suppressed by the pregnancy. Also, children that are less than 5 years that are yet to acquire immunity to the infection. And thirdly, the non-immune migrant travelers. According to the World Malaria Report by the World Health Organization, 19 countries in sub-Saharan Africa and India carry 85% of the global malaria burden. In Africa, Nigeria tops with 25%, and in Southeast Asia, India ranks highest with 47%, with an estimated country share of 47% for total malaria cases. Why the fuss about malaria? As of 2018, 872,000 children were born with low birth rates. This is 16% of the total children born with low birth rate for the period. This low birth rate is as a result of their mothers being exposed to malaria infection in pregnancy. 11 million pregnancies were exposed in 2019, and 405,000 mortalities were recorded globally for the period. Each community is different, and area-specific measures need to be put in place to curb the transmission of this disease. In this light, knowledge of socio-economic characteristics and the demographics of the inhabitants is indispensable. Presently, there's little empirical data on socio-demographic dynamics, their impact on the malaria incidence among pregnant women in the identified communities of Lugbe and Gosa, to warrant assessment of the malaria situation, to want prompt and effective intervention strategy. In Nigeria, malaria, and in most countries of the world, malaria is a leading cause of maternal and infant mortality. But there is little available literature on the environmental factors. Many of the studies of malaria targets secondary tertiary institutions, but these women flock to primary health care centers for their antenatal care. It is hoped that those studies will empower these primary health cares to tailor the treatment of those women and the antenatal care period properly to be able to curb the transmission of the infection and the rate at which it affects women and children. The aim of the study is to determine the impact of socio-demographics of pregnant women in Lugbe and Gosa on their malaria status. This study is significant because of the paucity in knowledge of environmental factors and the influence of socio-demographic characteristics. And we need this information to discover ways of suppressing malaria transmission. This study will contribute to existing knowledge in the area. It will assist entomologists, epidemiologists, and also malariologists. The National Malaria Elimination Program will find it useful to carry out their mandate. It is important to the Health Ministry, whose job it is to formulate policies for the health sector. The obstetricians and the midwives that manage those women need this. Achievement of Millennium Development Goal 4 and 5 is very important, is key, and it will serve as reference for future researchers. The study area is Amak Medical Center, Lugbe, and Amak Medical Center, Gosa. Both of those medical centers are primary health care centers where many women in this locality go for their antenatal care. This is because they believe, since it's owned by the government, the quality of the health care they will get is better compared to the privately owned clinics. A little about these communities. Both of these communities are located in Abuja Municipal Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. Both of them are key communities because they are located on the major highway, which is the airport road of the only airport in the capital city. The sample population are pregnant women that are attending antenatal care clinics in Amak Clinic in Lugbe and Amak Clinic in Gosa. The sample size is 509 pregnant women. The research design is cross-sectional survey and descriptive design. The samples are collected. The blood sample is collected by pricking the thumbs of those women. The blood sample is stained, germs are stained, and then through thick and thin slides, the presence of the parasites is sought for under the microscope. Questionnaires are given to those women. This questionnaire is divided into two sections, the A and the B. It has 32 questions in all. These questions are tailored to getting information about their social standing, their economic status, the area where they live in, the building materials, their knowledge of malaria, the causes of malaria, and to test for how much they know, how much they can prevent it, how much they can protect themselves and their families that depend on them. It's also get to know their educational status, what they do for a living, to help us better understand these women. Validity is tested with the fix, and the content and reliability was tested with a pilot study prior to the main study, and the Crobax alpha R was 0.922. Before the study went on board, the researcher was introduced to those women by healthcare professionals that they relate with, who they've already known them, they trust them. The security situation in the country makes everyone wary of strangers, so it was paramount that these women got to know the researcher before the researcher approached them. Also, 3 assistants were trained. So these assistants helped to interface between the researcher and those women. In some cases, they acted as interpreters, and these are people that already know the area, and some know these women too. but before then they were trained to know what the study was about and how to go about it, and questionnaire was used in collecting the data. Written approvals was sought for and gotten from each of the respondents. There was an informed consent, and the participation was purely voluntary. Confidentiality and anonymity was also taken into consideration. Percentages mean and annual were calculated. In terms of the educational qualification of these women, 8.1% of them had no formal education, 21.7% of them had only primary education, 42% of them had secondary education, and 28.2% of them had only secondary education, while 42% of them had post-secondary education. For the occupation, there were a variety of occupations these women engaged in. However, 30% of them were unemployed, and 57% of them were into one form of business or the other. After the study, it was observed that in Gosa, malaria cases was the lowest was recorded in March with 6%. In April it was 10%, it moved to 21% in May. The highest was recorded in June with 23%, and it went down to 21% in July and 19% in August. In Lugbe, the story was not almost the same. 6% in March, 9% in April, 23% was recorded in May, 21% in June, and 21% in July, 20% in August. In terms of the relationship between the respondents and those that were positive, comparing them by age, 115 of them were less than 19 years of age. 97 out of this number tested positive for the infection. 235 of them were between the ages of 19 and 29. 150 of them were positive. 196 of them were between the age range of 30 and 39, and out of this number, 102 tested positive. 43 of them were 40 years and above, out of which 12 were positive for the infection. In the questionnaire, these women were asked whether they used mosquito net to sleep or not. Out of those that said yes, we sleep under mosquito net, 35.8% of them tested positive for the infection. 64.2% of them were negative. On the flip side, those that said no, we don't sleep under the mosquito net, 65.8% of them were positive for malaria, while 34.2% of them were negative. In terms of parity, the highest number of infection was recorded among the pre-gravidates. 73.8% were positive for malaria, and 26.1% were negative. Those that were pregnant for the second time, 44% were positive, 56% were negative. Those that were pregnant for the third time, 26.9% positive, 73.08% negative. Those that were pregnant for the fourth time, 26.73% positive, 73.27% negative. And for those that are pregnant for the fifth time and above, 20% positive, 80% negative. They were also asked, do you close your window at night? And for those that said yes, we close all our windows at night, 45% tested positive to the malaria infection, 55% were negative. And for those that said no, we don't, 65.9% were positive for malaria, 34.1% of them were negative. We sought to know what type of material was used in constructing the building where these respondents live. For those that live in houses constructed with mud, 52.1% of them were positive, whereas 48.9% were negative. None of them lived in houses made with bricks. Those that live in houses made with cement, 40% of them were positive, 60% were negative. Those that live in houses made with wood, 74.9% were positive, while 25.1% of them were negative. Now for the environmental factor impact. We use class 1 factor, class 2 factor, and class 3 factor. And for the impact, wood had the highest, though the houses constructed with wood had the highest impact. And so it was under class 1 factor, followed by houses that were constructed with mud, and then those that were constructed with cement. At this point, it is imperative to point out that climatic factors can also affect malaria incidence. Factors like quantity of rainfall, humidity have varying degrees of impact on the incidences of malaria in a community. Inhabitants of these communities need to be part of the government's effort to curbing the transmission of malaria. It is worthy of note that from the data gathered, many of them are still relying on superstitious beliefs to help them tackle malaria when they are down with the disease. Many are limited by these beliefs, even to the extent of taking drugs or not taking drugs. These inhabitants need to know how to protect themselves, so they need to be aware, and information needs to be continually given to them, passed down to them, either through the social media, the antenatal classes, or any other means through which information can be disseminated. It was observed that these women are only sent to the lab or even given drugs when they complain about one ailment or the other. And so our advices that malaria prophylaxis should, as a matter of urgency, be incorporated into pregnant women's antenatal drugs. This should be part of the government's policy to enable malaria to be tackled, because many of them are asymptomatic, and this infection is only brought to the fore when it's already late. It is my sincere desire that this little contribution will change lives for the better. Thank you so much for listening, and please do stay safe.